We've got Erik Davis from Fandango, where he's an editor, joining us this episode to talk a bit about some of the big movies nominated for the Oscars this year and which ones are available for digital purchase or rental on Vudu and other digital services. Erik, before we dive into those movies, do you want to take a second to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Erik Davis. I'm a managing editor over at Fandango and Vudu, and I help manage all of our content and all of our social media. And then I also do a lot of interviews myself on TV and on the radio and on podcasts. And very excited about the Oscars and excited to rewatch or watch some of these films for the first time. Make sure I'm all ready for Oscar night.
Any dark horses you're expecting to win any this year?
Is Top Gun Maverick a dark horse? I don't know.
I mean, yes and no. If I had to kind of like assign what was my favorite movie of the year, I hate to say it, but it would probably be Top Gun, just because I'm always so jaded on like big tentpole Hollywood movies. But this was such a well executed one. I kind of want it to win everything that it was nominated for.
I agree. It was just a really entertaining film across the board, and it did make you feel the way that you did. Like I felt like watching a film like Jurassic Park for the first time, or going back to some of those big blockbusters of my youth that just felt so surprising, and they were so entertaining, and they made you laugh and cry and cheer. And I think this film just had this perfect recipe that it really, it touched a lot of people around the world. So I am personally rooting for Top Gun Maverick, but there are definitely some like bigger dark horses in there. I think the biggest surprise and something that a lot of people are talking about now is this film To Leslie and the nomination for Andrea Riseborough for Best Actress. Nobody saw that coming. All the people predicting this film and predicting the Oscars, predicting nominations. This was a bit of a grassroots campaign for Andrea Riseborough, really unlike any that we've seen before. And so I think that was like a big dark horse, in my opinion.
Cool. Well, let's get right into it. First up on the list, at least from what I'm looking at, is After Sun. This is nominated for Best Actor, Paul Mescal. I haven't heard of this, so what can you tell me about After Sun?
Yeah, so this is actually a really well done, emotional film about a girl who kind of takes a bit of a melancholy holiday with her father. And she's recalling this holiday that she took 20 years prior. And it's Paul Mescal is an actor who he's also going to star in the Gladiator sequel that's coming out. And so he's definitely a star on the rise. And this is a nice opportunity, I think, alongside another actor we'll be talking about, Austin Butler. That category is a really great one this year because everyone is a first-time nominee in that category. And so Paul Mescal for After Sun, the film itself is really wonderful. And I think that I don't know if he'll win, but I would highly recommend catching up on it. If you haven't, just make sure you have your tissues ready.
Yeah, speaking of Gladiator sequel, linking it back to Top Gun, seeing as how that was like such a surprising sequel movie to be received so well, I think the key to a good sequel is in-camera shots with the actors in jets. So, what's the over-under on seeing some fighter jets in Gladiator 2?
Yeah, we could definitely see some cockpit shots in Gladiator 2. But yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, Paul Mescal, keep your eyes on him. He's a hot up-and-coming actor right now.
Cool. Moving on to the next one, there's Babylon, which has been nominated for production design, costume design, and original score.
Yeah, this is the new film from Damien Chazelle. Bit divisive, I think, in some ways, because I kind of look at this if Damien's film La La Land, which just racked up all kinds of Oscar nominations, if that is like the Hollywood dream, the Hollywood fantasy, Babylon represents the Hollywood nightmare. And there's a lot of kind of nightmare fuel in this film. Also about sort of aspirants in the world of Hollywood. And it's kind of the old Hollywood before old Hollywood. It takes place at a very interesting time as Hollywood is sort of transitioning out of the silent era into talkies. We don't see a lot of films about that. This one is a bit haphazard. It's a bit all over the place narratively. I think that's why we don't see it in that Best Picture. We don't see some of its stars nominated in the performance category. But there are some brilliant sequences in it, and it is really fantastic to watch. And so I would highly recommend catching up on it, even if it isn't one of those films that's nominated for the big stuff, so to speak.
Yeah, well, speaking of stuff getting nominated for the big stuff, this next one, Banshees of Inisherin, I hope I'm saying that right. This has like 8 to 10 nominations here, and actually is the same director and leading 2 actors that were in Bruges altogether. So I haven't seen Banshees, but I have seen In Bruges. It was a pretty good dark comedy, and I'm hearing that this one's kind of similar.
Yeah, this one is terrific. And, as somebody, whenever I have a friend or a couple of neighbors of mine who they don't watch anything really. And so all of the nominees are announced, and then they want to know, like, okay, well, what order do I go in? Like, where do I start when it comes to Oscar nominations? And I'm always like, start with the stuff that gets all of the big ones. And there are like 2 films here that have pretty much gotten all of the big ones, but the Banshees of Inisherin, when you have all of the stars nominated for their performances, when you have your director nominated and the film is nominated for Best Picture, that to me is like the all encompassing film. That's where I would start. So I would start with the Banshees of Inisherin. And it's really essentially a story about friends who are breaking up, where one friend just doesn't like the other friend anymore. And that, and Colin Farrell plays the guy who is not liked anymore. And he's wrestling with why don't you like me? What is it about me that you don't like? And it's really well done. It's really well written. There is a great cameo from a donkey named Jenny that's in it that has been a bit of a social media star. And it's, I think, just simple setting and simple story told very well and very entertaining. And that's why we see all of its all of its main performers nominated as well, as is its score, as is its screenplay. So this is one of the most nominated films, and definitely one that you should watch sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Moving on to the other end of the typical audience goer spectrum, we have the Batman nominated for visual effects, sound, makeup, and hairstyling. My co-host Charles and I talked at length about this earlier last year when it first came out, to the point where we had to cut it out and put it into kind of like podcast bonus material. And honestly, we had way more to say about it. I'm going to shut my mouth and let you take it away. Eric, what do you have to say about the Batman?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Matt Reeves. I was a big fan of his Planet of the Apes movies, and I think he just adds a sort of layer of nuance and a layer of just visual spectacle, grimy, gritty visual spectacle that you don't see in some of these other comic book movies. And so I really love the Batman. Visual effects, sound, and makeup and hairstyling. I'm somebody who thinks you could also throw cinematography in there. I think Colin Farrell could have also been nominated for Best Supporting Actor for playing the Penguin. Like, I think this is a film that could have easily got a couple of other nominations just off the sheer production value that Reeves introduces in his world. And I could foresee his next couple of Batman movies maybe even registering in a way that, like, say, The Dark Knight did when Christopher Nolan was making his trilogy. So as a big fan of Batman and as a fan of comic book movies in general, I am most excited about Matt Reeves' Batman movies in terms of kind of getting back to the excitement that we had when Christopher Nolan was making the Batman trilogy, and that was also being recognized. And so great to see it on there. Could have been on there for a couple of more categories, but it's nice to see it represented.
Yeah, with Marvel, I think cracking the 30s in terms of how many movies they've put out, they've kind of reached like an equilibrium in terms of visual style that all their movies have to follow. So anything like the Batman or a couple TV shows, Peacemaker or The Boys, that diverges from what one expects to see in a superhero movie, I'm all for it. But moving on to the next one we have on the list, Elvis. This has been nominated for several awards, including Best Picture, Best Actor, Austin Butler, and Cinematography. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this could have easily wound up being just a simple by the numbers biopic. That kind of is fun to watch and you're tapping your foot to the music, but it doesn't really kind of stick with you. I think what Baz Luhrmann adds to this film is just he makes every inch of it entertaining. And so that's what I really loved about Elvis, is that just watching it was just an overwhelming experience. And every frame he makes interesting with his filmmaking. I think Baz Luhrmann could have been nominated, maybe should have been nominated for Best Director for Elvis, because just of how he elevates the material. Austin Butler, he's actually my pick to win it. I think he's going to win Best Actor over Brendan Fraser, Colin Farrell, and Paul Mescal. I think Austin Butler is really great in the film, and it's just one of those movies that it is entertaining from start to finish. It's long, so it's a nice one to watch at home if you haven't watched it yet. And get to know Austin Butler, because like Paul Mescal, he's another guy that's on the up and up, and we'll see Butler again in the Dune sequel, which comes out later this year. And so his star is definitely on the rise. And I do hope, as a fan of this film, that it does pick up a couple of Oscars.
Yeah, I saw a funny tweet about this movie in that Austin Butler shouldn't consider other roles. He should just continue his Elvis impersonation and just remake every single movie that Elvis has been in.
That would be funny. I mean, I think he's a good actor. And so I do want to see what else he can bring. But yeah, I am curious to see how long he holds on to that voice for.
Yeah, so moving on, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which based on this list seems to have been nominated for every award there is in the Oscars. I saw this, one of the few from this list, and I was blown away by it. So it's great to see that a movie with like such originality and unconventional relative to a lot of other stuff that comes out these days is getting recognized.
Yeah, 11 nominations. It leads all nominees with 11. And I agree with you. I think that we're living in a day and age where, the box office is often dominated by blockbusters, sequels, prequels, remakes. And a lot of people kind of, they'll criticize the industry and criticize Hollywood and say there's no original ideas anymore. You're not making anything. And so to see a film like this that is just bursting with originality to lead all nominees, I think is a good sign of like, we're not in the worst place. Like we could be in worse places when it comes to movies. And yeah, this one misses Best Actor. So it's not like Banshees. It doesn't have all of those, but it has multiple performers nominated: supporting actress, Best Supporting Actor. Ke Huy Quan is probably my favorite story of the year in terms of a guy that, peaked as a little kid in some big movies like The Goonies and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Hollywood forgot about him, but he persevered. He stayed with it. He didn't leave the industry and become a lawyer or something like that. And here he is all these years later. He finds this role. It's the role of his career. He's probably going to win an Oscar for it. And it's going to change his life forever. And so I just think that it's those stories that make us interested in the Oscars. It's those kind of Cinderella stories like that. And I think this film is full of them. Right now, I think it's probably the film to beat for Best Picture. And I think Key is going to win. I think Michelle Yeoh is going to win Best Actress. And I even think those two Daniels could even win Best Director, which shocks me considering the stuff that they made before this film. I never in a million years thought I would be saying that these guys are going to win Best Director, but I give them credit. They delivered a gem with this film.
Yeah, it also came out not long after the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness movie did. And I saw a lot of people complaining that that movie was kind of a trick. They only went to like 2 or 3 different universes. So if you're disappointed by that, watch this, because it featured, I can't even tell you how many possible scenarios and like universes the actress and actor went through.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just a beautiful story too, about families, immigrant families, and parents that immigrated over and gave everything that they have so that their kids can grow up and achieve success. And I think it has that layer built in underneath it that I think is really wonderful and special too.
So next up, we've got The Fabelmans. I believe this was the Steven Spielberg semi-biopic, right?
This is, yeah. So this is based on Spielberg's upbringing and how the divorce of his parents really kind of inspired his career and shaped him as a filmmaker. And this film, takes place when he's a kid, when he's coming of age. So it is it does at times feel like this classic Steven Spielberg coming of age story, but it's also like his life too. And so I think the beauty of this film is that when you step back from it, you also kind of are able to look at his other films through a different lens and through a new lens. And watching The Fabelmans, you can see, you think of films like E.T. differently, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you think about differently. And so I think it's for Spielberg fans, longtime Spielberg fans, I think this film is amazing and beautiful, and it's nominated in all the categories that it should be nominated in. And it could, will it Best Everything Everywhere for Best Picture? There's a chance it might.
So moving into the first nominee on this list that is up for Best Animated Feature, there's Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. And if you had to assign an emoji to a movie, I think it would just be the two like super wide open eyes, because this is a weird one.
Yeah, this is a weird one. It was like inspired by like YouTube shorts that were being done about this character. It's stop motion. And yeah, it's about like a shell that's just trying to find its way in the world. Jenny Slate is a big component of this. She helped write the screenplay. She also voices Marcel. And it's a lovely film that, has rich, deep emotions in it. It's well done and it's different. I think if you like your kind of animated films with a bit of a tearjerker in there too, then I think Marcel is definitely one to check out.
Cool. So the next one I have for Best Costume Design is Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. And this is the first I've ever heard of this movie. Eric, educate me.
Yes, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris came out in like July, I want to say. So it was one of those films that came out. Not a lot of people realized that it came out because it came out in the heat of the summer movie season. It's about a widowed cleaning lady. Takes place 1950s London. She falls in love with this dress. It's a Dior dress. Decides that she must have one of her own, and so she sets out on a mission to get the dress. It's just a lovely film. Nice performances. Leslie Manville also very good in it. Isabelle Huppert is also very good in it. I think there was a time when we thought maybe Leslie Manville could find her way into the performance category, but that didn't happen. But the film is lovely, and the costume design is really, really wonderful, especially when you get into like 50s London. A lot of colors, a lot of really cool costumes.
Great. So the next animated feature nominee we have is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which, if nothing else, was a dark horse movie. This was simply a dark horse in the sense of nobody expected it to be any good. And not only was it great, the animation was incredible too. Yeah,
it was really great, right? And I should mention too that since the nominations came out, we just released on Vudu like our top movies of the week by revenue. And it's interesting that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is number 2 on that list. Everything Everywhere All at Once is number 6 at that list. So if you're looking for like the Oscar bump, so to speak, that they speak of, those two, at least we can say, immediately got a bit of a bump. And Puss in Boots, yeah, I give credit to DreamWorks Animation. I think they've done a really good job of, sort of delivering these films that maybe they're unsuspecting hits, and Puss in Boots, between the comedy and the animation, which is gorgeous. I think it just does a really good job. And I think that based on the success of this film, I can see that Shrek universe coming back into our lives pretty quickly. So I would definitely expect more Shrek universe movies to follow this Puss in Boots film.
Yeah, I could be mistaken, but I think I saw a comment out from Eddie Murphy on that he would like to reprise his role as Donkey, and I'm sold there.
Yes. And Antonio Banderas told us that he would love to hang out with those guys again. And if you've seen Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, you know that there's a little bit of an Easter egg in there towards the end that may allude to some reunions of characters in the future.
Terrific. So the next one we have is Tar. We'll see if I pronounce that one correctly after messing up Banshees. What about this one, Eric?
You did get Tar right. And this one is just, Cate Blanchett, I think one of the most competitive races this year is that Best Actress category, more so in that it's like Cate Blanchett versus Michelle Yeoh. And I've actually joked that we could maybe even see a tie, which we have seen at the Oscars before. We have seen, I think there's been about 6 ties. But if there's any category where we see a tie, it would be here between Cate Blanchett and Michelle Yeoh. Cate Blanchett plays a fictional, iconic, like legendary composer and conductor who begins to, fall from grace after abuse allegations are leveled upon her. Really well done. I mean, Todd Field doesn't make a lot of movies. Took a few years off from his last movie, and he just knocks it out of the park here. And I think it deserves, very deserving of all of the nominations that it has received. But for me, this is the Cate Blanchett show. You really can't take your eyes off her this entire film. She is so captivating and so good at what she does. I feel like every role that she takes on is going to be nominated for an Oscar. She's just that good of an actress. And it's a really special time for us to be living in this age with her, because I think she's going to go down as one of the greatest ever. And this performance is one of the many reasons why.
Yeah, I agree completely. So next we've got To Leslie nominated for Best Actress. That's for Andrea Riseborough. So what about this one? Because I haven't heard of this one either.
Yeah, this was the surprise. This was a huge surprise. It was based on a grassroots campaign that Andrea Riseborough and her management team and the director's wife emailing celebrities, private screenings. The Academy is actually looking at it to make sure that it was a kosher nomination and that there weren't any rules broken, which itself has sparked its own controversy. But I mean, what is the Oscars without some kind of controversy, right? So, but she's very good in the film. She plays a recovering alcoholic who's trying to get back on her feet after winning the lottery and blowing all the money, trying to reunite with her estranged son and just make a life for herself. And Andrea Riseborough, excellent in the film. I mean, look, she deserves to be where she is. It is not an undeserving nomination. I think it's more of a question of how the nomination came about. But yeah, it's out there. I would recommend watching it.
Okay, and then moving on to a movie that, based on its box office draw, everybody seems to have watched, Top Gun Maverick.
Love Top Gun Maverick. This is my jam. This is my favorite movie of the year. I think it just not only like brought people back to the movies, but it also proved that you can be a giant, massive success and not be a comic book movie, and that you could also be a giant, massive success and be nominated for Best Picture. And so I think that, similar in the way that it's really nice to see a great original film and Everything Everywhere All at Once nominated, it's also great to see a film like Top Gun Maverick that like everybody went to see like 4 times nominated for Best Picture. The Academy has been criticized in recent years of just not recognizing that commercial fare, not giving those films a chance to also compete. Feels like there used to be an era where that was the case, but not in the last several years. And so I love Maverick, and I hope it wins Best Picture, but it's great to see it in there and to get multiple nominations.
Yeah. So second to last movie we've got here, Triangle of Sadness. This has been nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay.
Yeah, this is a bit of a dark horse and also a bit of a surprising nominee this year. It's well done. It's essentially a film about a bunch of uber rich people who get on a cruise ship, and the cruise ship runs afoul, and once they're stranded on land, then the roles reverse, and now the people who work on the ship become a lot more powerful than maybe they were previously, and it's sort of what they call like a quote unquote eat the rich kind of movie. Which ironically is nominated by a bunch of very wealthy Academy members. And it also does include like a 30-minute sequence involving vomiting on this cruise ship. So it's a bit of a crazy movie. That's why I'm surprised to see it nominated. Do I think that other stuff could have been there instead of this one? Yes. That being said, it is well done. It is very darkly amusing, and it is worth a watch.
Yeah, and then last we've got Turning Red, the last animated feature that's on the nominated list of Oscars.
Yeah, and Pixar. It's great to see Pixar on there. Pixar used to dominate this category, and not as much in recent years. But this is about a 13-year-old girl who turns into a giant red panda whenever she gets too excited. It's kind of like there's a bit of a Teen Wolf vibe there, but it's told with such personality, with such a specific POV, takes place in Toronto, and very kind of Gen X-y as well, and really, really wonderful and colorful and well done. And that animation category this year, I think, is so strong. Each one of the films nominated is different from the one next to it. All worth watching, all take risks with their animation style, and Turning Red is another one of those.
Yeah, so that was the list of Oscar nominees that are available to check out on Vudu, either for digital download or rent. Thanks for swinging by, Erik. What's the best place that people can find you online?
Yeah, I'm always running my mouth on Twitter at Erik with a K Davis, so you can always follow me on Twitter. But if not there, then just check out what we have going on Fandango and on Vudu.
Yeah, we'll include links to those in the show notes. Thanks again, Erik.
Thank you for having me.